Good evening, folks, and welcome back to yet another episode of the ARCA Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Colby Evans, a.k.a. Starting Parker on Twitter, and we have a big show for you guys today, the Mid-Ohio Race Review and my home track weekend. I'm at Iowa, the preview show for that one as well. Fun show today, preview. We're going to talk about Sean Hingorani's really dumb stunt he pulled at Mid-Ohio and obviously the consequences that are going to come with that. And we're also going to talk about Iowa and how the entry list is just a tad disappointing to what it could have potentially have been. But, you know, that's the racing business. So we're going to go through my little intro. I go through at the beginning of every podcast, and then we'll get right into it. So you guys know the drill. Follow me on social media at Starting Parker on Twitter for all ARCA tweets, low-budget tweets, all that fun crap you guys know I usually tweet. Like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when we go live. And, of course, check out theracingexperts.com for all NASCAR media-related content. So let's get right into it, shall we? It's kind of weird doing this podcast literally not 6 days after the race happened, but obviously with my podcast schedule, this is when I can do it. Mid-Ohio, one of the more interesting road courses period. It's from its level changes to its corners. It's a very, very fun road course overall. And ARCA, as usual, usually put on a good show. Last year's rain race was very entertaining. I thought it was probably one of the better ARCA races of the entire year. No rain in the forecast for this past weekend. We knew it was going to be a dry race. So it was still going to be a pretty good one. We did have some interesting entries. 22 cars overall. One withdrew. One withdrew, that being the 45 of Tony Cosentino, mainly due to funding and also the cost to transfer what would be an oval car of theirs over to a road course setup, and then having to take that road course setup and then take it back into a short track setup. You can imagine for a lot of these lower tier teams the struggle with that, because a lot of them use the same exact car. They don't just have a distinct road course chassis like the Venturini team does and Joe Gibbs Racing. If you guys hear some commotion, we got some dogs upstairs that are going absolutely crazy right now. So I apologize if you guys hear the barking, as we occasionally struggle with that in the Evans household. But yeah, we had 22 cars, 45 withdrew, but we did have some interesting entries nonetheless. We had two technical Peterson cars show up. The 06 of Tim Richmond was back in his own car. We had Zach Herron returning for the first time since Daytona. Todd Souza, who's a former, longtime runner of the West Circuit, was making his return to the main division. We had Dean Thompson returning once again. This was one of his races to help get experience for the truck race that he would be running the next day. And Bob Schatt, 73-year-old at this point. How old is he? Is he around 73-year-old Bob Schatt returning to the ARCA Series as well for the first time since 2016. So not the biggest entry list, but well more than enough cars to at least put on a good show for the fans and for the TV audience. So for the starting parks in this race, I kind of figured it would be the 48 of Brad. I mean, I told you guys, I tell you guys a lot on the show every week. The Porsche Chevrolet is on its last legs. It's got a sticky throttle, so I don't know if they ever got that fixed. But they did run it here and made a whopping one lap before they pulled off. So, I know people say, like, why does Brad show up all that way just for one lap? It's the whole season. He's got to show up for the whole season, even if he doesn't want to show up for these road course races in particular. So we had 21 cars start the race. Race started off fire with some interesting entries. Of course, we had, like I said, the 61 of Tyler Ankrum as well. The pole sitter for this race, although he would have a flunky finish, Sean Hingorani was on the pole for this race. Second was Tyler Ankrum. Third was Jack Wood, and fourth was William Sawalich. And Jesse Love was kind of the big story as well. Despite showing great speed in practice, Gremlins appeared in qualifying. He did not make a qualifying lap, and it didn't almost look like the 20 would even start the race. The 20 was on pit road. I believe they changed out the battery. I don't know if they replaced the battery or looked at the battery, but they did some battery work, electrical work on the dash. So a lot of electrical gremlins were plaguing, I believe, the entire team. Some of the other Venturini cars were having electrical problems as well. But they did get the car going. Since Jesse was at the back anyway, it didn't really matter where he started. He was flying through the field as usual, whether it be aggressive or non-aggressive. We expected him to fly through the field. Right out of the gate, Sean Hingorani, kind of surprised that he was able to keep the lead from Tyler Ankrum right at the start. I figure with Ankrum's experience, obviously going back to the K&N days when he drove for David Gilliland, that he would be able to get right past Sean. But although they pulled away from the field, and they pulled away from the field by a lot, I mean, I think by the time we had the first caution on lap 5, they had a 6-second lead over third place. Jack Wood, Andres Perez de Lara, and William Sawalich, who were all battling for third. While Hingorani was leading, 61 was definitely following him, not letting him get out of his sight. So we definitely had a race on our hands. This was not going to be a one-car dominance, and I was glad to see that, because sometimes with these ARCA road course races, you usually just see one guy drive away with the win. But this time we actually saw that we had not only about 1, 2, around 3 guys who actually had a legit chance at it, maybe a 4th or 5th, depending on how the race itself went. But we had a legit 3 guys who could actually win this. So they held that lead standard for the first 5 laps until we had our first caution of the race. The 06 unfortunately came to a halt on track. That was Tim Richmond making his first start since Talladega. Not sure if this was the same car, but either way, it appeared that a battery issue, what we would come to later find out, a battery issue on the car, and obviously with the team not having a spare battery and not being able to get a spare battery from another team, that's day over. So unfortunately, after 5 laps, Tim Richmond's day is done. Boy, it's really been a struggle for poor Tim Richmond and that team ever since, they left Peterson and formed the Richmond Club Motorsports team with Alex Club. We all know how that turned out. It's really been a struggle for the Richmond team, and I hate to see it. Tim's a great guy. His father works hard. Tim's a good guy. He's just, I don't want to say Tim doesn't have the passion for racing. He does, but he also kind of wants to focus more on his life, which I can understand as well. So that's why we don't see him as much anymore. We've literally only seen him, I think, 3rd time this year. I applaud them for trying to get out of the track and doing their best, but man, it just goes to show you, man, the ARCA climate running as an owner-driver is definitely not easy. Definitely not easy, and it sucks to see Tim having all this bad luck. Also, while we had the 48, like I said, Brad Smith pull off after 1 lap, and the 12 of Zachary Tinkle, he pulled off after 4 laps. So at that point, we were already down to 18 cars left on track. The 0 of AJ Moyer was kind of, making some fun comments online. He was on average about 15 to 16 seconds a lap. I think about 25 seconds a lap off the pace. But I will give them all the defense in the world. The car that they brought, the Toyota, is already a slow car, probably actually one of the slowest cars in the Peterson stable. It's a reliable car, like it'll get to the finish, but it's just slow. I think Peterson's Ford is arguably the best car in the stable. Chevrolet is also reliable, but it's not really a road course car. So you already have a car that's slow. You already have a car that's not really meant for road courses, and you're trying to run it at a road course. So that's why I give the 0 of AJ Moyer a pass. And in reality, he's running at a pace where he's not hurting anyone. They never caught him to lap him, so he's never going to be in any danger. With how big Mid-Ohio sports car course was, they never were going to lap AJ Moyer. So although he was as slow as he was not hurting anything. He was not hurting anyone. He was not hurting anyone by being out there. So I give him a pass. Because when you realize the kind of equipment that they're bringing, they're trying their best. You got to give some of these guys a pass. You can be critical on them, but you got to give them a pass at the same time. So we got back going green again on lap number 8. And at this point, we saw our first lead change of the race. Tyler Ankrum was able to get past Sean Hingorani on the restart and really kind of set sail. He pulled out to about a 1 to 2 second lead. Hingorani, though, wouldn't let him get too far away as he was battling with Andres Perez de Lara, William Sawalich, who looks like he's really starting to come into his own as a road racer. We saw him struggle at Portland, improve at Sonoma. Obviously, I think running these ARC races is very benefiting for him. He would also run the truck race. He would also run the truck race as well to get more road course experience because, obviously driving late models all the time, road course is where he needs to learn the most. So I'm really happy that Gibbs and his sponsors are putting in the money for him to also get road course experience because he's literally run, I think, every ARCA sanctioned road race this entire year, and I believe he's running the rest of them too. I know he'll be running the 18 at the Glen as well. So They were all kind of battling for fourth, and a hard-charging Jesse Love was also coming through the field. At this point, he was well into the top 10. Was battling Dale Quarterly. I don't quite know the exact time of the race. Dale made just an incredible 3-wide pass on Andres Perez de Lara, and I don't know who else it was. Made an incredible 3-wide pass, but unfortunately, I guess they didn't like it, and the 2 would dump the 4. Now, luckily, Dale Quarterly took it like a man, unlike Sean Hingorani later in the race. Dale Quarterly took it like a man and just simply drove back up through the field like a badass, like the badass he is, because we know Dale Quarterly is awesome. 62 years old, by the way. I would not mess with him. So we ran another 5 laps until we fortunately had another caution. Boy, it's been a rough couple races for Alex Club. It's hard, doing in a single car operation your own with little funding. Unfortunately, the 0 car came to a stop. It appeared they had lost a right front tire or a shock, something like that. Something broke on the car, causing the tire to go flat. Luckily, Casey kept it out of the wall, but did cause some right front damage. Nonetheless, though, that is 2 straight DNFs. Number 1 for Casey Carden and number 2 for Alex Club's team, which has hurt the car in the owner points and has also hurt the car, period. I mean, going through an engine failure and going through right front damage is also chaos on the car. You see this right here? See this man? This is my father, everyone, dropping papers on me. This is my father dropping papers on me. So that was the first cameo appearance of my father. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that. But yeah, going back to the race, I feel for Alex Club. It's so hard, when they don't have spare engines and you just you kind of gotta repair the engine you got, find the part that's broken and repair that part, not necessarily get a fresh engine. So, and unfortunately, when you keep doing that, eventually the whole engine is just going to give away. It's just kind of the nature of a beast with engines. You can only repair the part so many times before eventually the whole thing just either blows up or it just stops working. So, unfortunately, 0-3 was done for the day. AJ Moyer, who was kind of on and off pit road as well, also, he would pass the 0-3. He would pull off track 3 laps later due to a vibration. I didn't think that the 0 was going to go the whole distance. I think they just wanted to see if AJ could outlast some of the guys on track, which he did. I mean, I thought AJ was literally going to run 1 lap, but AJ actually managed to survive 4 other cars and actually finish 17th. And then we'll go ahead and finish this one off too. Tim Monroe, who actually, for a guy who hasn't done many road races, was actually running pretty competitive lap times. Again, for a guy who's, he's a full-time crew member for Fast Track Racing. But for a guy who hasn't done much road racing, he was really running competent lap times. And he would pull off after 17 laps. And that was the last of kind of the lower tier cars in starting parks. The final 15 cars were committed to running the whole race, pending, of course, actual issues. So just wanted to get those out of the way. The final 15 cars did finish the race. So we got back going green again after the 0-3. Tyler Ankrum continued to lead, but Jesse Love now had made his way into the top 5 and the top 3. So we get back going green again. The 61 leads up until lap 21, but it's clear that Jesse Love has a car that can win. He gets past his teammates, Dean Thompson. He gets past his teammate, Connor Jones. He gets past his teammate, Sean Hingorani, and he is up to 2nd place. Unfortunately, though, by that time, the caution came out due to the scheduled break caution. So nobody loses positions. We all come down. Teams make their adjustments, blah, blah, blah. You guys know how that goes. Get back going green after the scheduled caution. And we ran the final 18 laps green. Ran the final 18 laps green, although things did change up front on the restart. While many people say he got shunted, after looking at the replay many, many, many times on this restart, I can honestly say, for all people who blame Jesse Love, he did not touch that 61. I have no idea what happened to the 61. He was on fresh tires. Was there just no heat in them? I don't know what happened, but the 61 just goes into turn 1 and completely misses the corner. and he just slides off right into the grass. So I have no idea what happened there. Jesse did not touch him. And if he did, I wouldn't even call it on purpose, like the slightest bit of contact. But I really, looking at the footage, I think the 61 just lost it by himself. It did not look like there was contact made. Nonetheless, though, it looked like that the 20's only competition had now just taken himself out of the race. So now the 20 is just setting sail on the field, as we thought, with his teammates, second and third. Frankie Muniz at this point, he had climbed back into the top 5. We'll talk more about him. Andres Perez de Lara, his car had begun to fade, unfortunately, at this point. He was running second, but couple laps after we were in green, his car really, really started to fade, which pretty much Venturini running like 1, 2, 4, and like 6th, because you had Sawalich up there, you had Jack Wood up there, and you had Dale Quarterly, who had made his way back up there as well. But as all this is going on still, Tyler Ankrum somehow is literally just laying down qualifying laps. I mean, I was watching his lap times while I was watching the race too, and he is clicking off these unbelievable lap times, like a man on a mission. And he was catching the field at such an unbelievable rate. And then we started to notice with about 13, 12 laps to go, the 20, his lap time started to drop. They started or get higher. Like he was getting slower and slower and slower. And we finally noticed it as his teammates were starting to catch him on that very long straightaway that Mid-Ohio has. Around about 3/4 of the way there, the 20 would just like stall out. Like it wouldn't go any faster, and the guys would really catch him. They would come to later find out that I believe they had a fuel pump issue that obviously you can't fix. You can't fix, obviously, or you're going to lose multiple laps. So unfortunately, he was left with what he had. And as the race continued on, Jesse continued to struggle in that one spot. He couldn't help it. So he politely, I'll say respect to him, instead of just blocking his opponents, he knew he couldn't block them. And it started to get worse and worse and worse, pretty much about halfway. Fast forwarding a little bit, by the time we got to like 5 laps to go, he would pretty much have to stall. He would pretty much stall out like halfway. So he couldn't do pretty much anything. So it was not going to be another win for Jesse Love. Now it was just a matter of who was going to win. You had Dean Thompson and Sean Hingorani and William Sawalich. Connor Jones had kind of fallen a little bit by this point. I believe. I don't know if he spun. I don't quite remember what happened to him. But he somehow was taken out of the equation. Like I said, the 2 as well of Andres Perez de Lara, I don't know what was happening to his car, but he was running just these really, really slow lap times. Would actually be the last car running. Everybody in the field had managed to pass him. At this point, it was kind of a 4-horse race. The 6, the 20, the 18, and the 61 were behind the 55 and 15. Dean Thompson grabs the lead on lap 33, holds it till lap 37. And in between those 4 laps, or the 5 laps, we had some pretty interesting stuff and probably the moments of the race. It looked like, just by the way the cars were looking, Sean Hingorani did actually have the better car. But I think obviously Dean's experience on road courses, he's had previous experience in the West Series, in the ARCA West Series when they ran road courses. So he has road racing experience, obviously from the Truck Series last year as well. So again, he has more road racing experience than Sean Hingorani would. So he was putting his car in all the right places. Sean Hingorani simply couldn't pass. Well, as they were coming up to the last couple corners, I'm telling you, the 15 was just laying into him with rear bumper shots. And as they were coming off the second to last corner, he had finally gotten beside him. And frankly, I will say this, I don't blame Dean Thompson at all, teammates or not. At the end of the day, these guys are not running for points. Yes, they're running for owner points. You know, the 15 car's in the full-time owners championship. We know that. The 55 is not. But at the end of the day, these guys are they are teammates. But at the same time, when you're running your teammate like an idiot, what do you expect? So as they come off the last corner, the 55 just absolutely shoves the 15 right off the track. And I'm like, good. I mean, he was roughing up his teammate really badly, and he got what he deserved. So the 15 does a 360. He gets it going. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, the 61 has managed to get by the 6 and the 20, and he is now running down the 55 very quickly. He would pass. He would make the winning pass on the 55 of Dean Thompson with just 5 laps to go. There was no catching the 61. A remarkable drive with no cautions. Keep in mind, he did all of this under green. One of the most impressive drives I have ever seen in ARCA was Tyler Ankrum. He came back from 10 seconds off the field. A very impressive drive. So he takes the lead, and he's setting sail. It looks like this is going to be Hattori's. Would this be their first ARCA win? I know they've won some. I know they've won in the K&N era, but I don't know if they've won in the ARCA era. But so he's setting sail. Meanwhile, the battle for second is heating up. Dean Thompson's kind of falling into the clutches of William Sawalich, of Jack Wood and Jesse Love, and even Dale Quarterly. Dale Quarterly had started to come up with these guys. So it was kind of a 4-horse race for second. But as we would come to find out, Dean Thompson wouldn't even get a chance to try to hold his second place position as they took the white flag. Tyler Ankrum set sail, but all of a sudden you could kind of see in the beginning shots, you could see what looked like the 15 car. And there were some friends of mine who were doing spotting there that looked like the 15 was like running so slow. And I hadn't even looked at his lap times, but apparently he was running so slow on track, they actually thought about parking him with like 3 laps to go. He was that slow. We would come down to find out why. Again, I don't know which exact corner it was, but coming into one of the corners, the 55 goes by, and the 15 of Sean Hingorani, you guys have seen the footage. I'm sure you guys have. I don't really need to explain it, the whole thing to you, but basically runs the 55 off the track, and both of them get stuck in the gravel trap. They're not really heavily damaged cars. Like, I'm sure both cars were fine, but it took the 55 from a second place finish, and it really kind of costed the 15 whatever finish it had as well. So Tyler Ankrum goes on to get his first career ARCA victory. William Sawalich gets much-needed road course experience, finishing second. Jack Wood also getting road course experience for the truck race, getting third. Jesse Love, despite the fuel pump issues, gets fourth. And Dale Quarterly, due to the incident with the 55, gets a top 5 finish, something that can always make everyone happy. Frankie Muniz would end up 6th. Todd Souza 7th. Connor Jones limped it to 8th. Zach Herron for Andy Hillenberg gets a top 10 finish due to the last lap mischief. And Dean Thompson would actually round out the top 10 as well. Christian Rose ended up 11th. John Garrett 12th. Sean Hingorani would end up 13th. Actually, also forgot to mention Sean Hingorani, in his frustration, actually dumped the 75 of Bob Schatt the lap after the incident. And I really wanted to go see Bob Schatt beat the crap out of Sean Hingorani after that. Like, you don't mess with Bob Schatt. He might be in his 70s, but you don't mess with these old guys. They will just beat the ever-living crap out of you. And Bob would say in his interview, kid's an idiot, which he was. I mean, everything Sean Hingorani did in those last 10 laps is some of the dumbest crap I've ever seen. You know, and I also say rule number 1 is don't wreck yourself don't wreck someone without wrecking yourself. And that what Landon Castle said, such a dumb thing. Like, we're better than this. Venturini's better than this. Obviously, from what the media is saying, Billy Venturini was hot. Bill Venturini were hot after the race, not wanting to speak to anyone, which how could you blame them? Dean Thompson appeared to take it like a champ. Sean Hingorani honestly didn't show much remorse for it, but I think it is what it is. You know, the event happened. My personal opinion is I think it's stupid. It is childish. It's not needed in this sport, no matter any type of stock car racing, whether it's the Cup Series or unless you're at your local short track, we're fine. But if you're in a major touring division, stuff like that is just not cool. And we know Sean Hingorani, you know, he's a paid driver for Venturini. You know, he pays a lot for that seat. He's full-time East, full-time West. So he pays a lot of money for these rides. But at the end of the day, stuff like that, it doesn't matter how much money you have. When you have that, what Sean Hingorani has done to himself now, it doesn't matter how much money you have. When you have that on your track record, you have officially, in my opinion, you have killed your career. Sean Hingorani, after this year, I think Venturini will finish out this year because they want to see if he can still get the West Series championship. But it would not shock me if we do not see Sean Hingorani not return to Venturini Motorsports next year. And I don't know where he goes. I'm sure some team will happily love to pick up his money, but I think Sean Hingorani has very well killed his career after this year because I don't think Venturini will want to break the contract. I think they want to go after the West Series championship. But what he did was just incredibly stupid. You don't do that. It's like what Ryan Preece said at Charlotte last year. Don't do that. You want to have a good career? Don't do that. So, I mean, he might still have a shot at the West Series championship, but he will lose his East championship no matter what. He has been suspended for the one race, which just so happened to be an East Combo race at Iowa, which means he effectively has no shot at the East Series championship. That was his suspension. They didn't mention any fines, but I am more than likely sure there was a fine behind-the-scenes penalty that we were not told about. But either way, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, dumb penalties like that. But then, of course, you have clowns. You have people who call us a clown series, and then they go out there and make videos for clicks and views and money. And then you have people like me trying to stick up for the series, calling it blue collar, because in my opinion it is. You got people like it's 1960s NASCAR in today's world, which is, in my opinion, what ARCA is, which is great. I have no problem with that. And you got people online who are just making really poorly edited videos who just love to crap on a series. And can honestly say is not welcome in the ARCA garage. And if you ever watch this podcast, you know who you are. And the people who watch this podcast, I'm sure know exactly who I'm talking about. I'm sure you guys saw my tweets over the weekend. Was not happy with his videos, was not happy with what he said. And he wonders why the entire garage doesn't like him. I really cannot imagine. How do you not realize the entire garage does not like you when you post stupid, I'm just going to say, you post stupid shit like that on YouTube, constantly burying our series, when we've seen a lot of dumb crap out of the truck series. So you know who you are if you ever watch this podcast. But yeah, that was the penalty for Sean Hingorani. He will not be racing at Iowa this weekend, which unfortunately had an effect on the Iowa entry list. We'll get to that in a second. We did have some other news coming out of this race. Frankie Muniz, the sponsorship issues look like they're starting to catch up with him. They were unsponsored for this race at Mid-Ohio. They had a design on the car, which kind of a Muniz racing design. I think it was by his son. And, he's very happy to do this. We all love having Frankie Muniz in the series. But obviously it doesn't matter how successful of a name you are in Hollywood or television. You need those sponsor dollars. There was question whether he would make it to Iowa. They were going to make a decision by on Monday, whether they would go or not. And thankfully on the entry list, we did see the 30, and Frankie himself confirmed it on Twitter last night. So great to hear that the 30 will be there. But following Iowa, they really do not know if they will be at the next ARCA race. And that's just sad to see, man. It's sad to see a guy like Frankie Muniz, of all people, having trouble finding sponsorship. And then when I put out there, people are like, oh, it's because nobody wants to sponsor ARCA. It's like sponsoring ARCA is just kind of like sponsoring the Cup, an Xfinity truck, something like that. And it was like, well, you don't get your return investment. Theoretically, most sponsors honestly don't get a return investment nowadays. Even in all sports divisions, they just sponsor. It's how it goes. Okay. So I think he'll finish out the year. I'd be shocked if ARCA doesn't help him out. I know they've helped out a lot of teams before. It would not shock me if we even see Menards. If somehow, I don't know, somebody get in contact with John Menard, I think that'd be cool to see number 30 sponsored by Menards. I mean, John Menard's got plenty of money for it. I don't see why he couldn't do that. He got plenty of money to sponsor that 30 car. So, but yeah, the ARCA race itself was good. Mid-Ohio never disappoints. Really, really good. Really good race. For how many cars we had, the action was good. The point standings look like this coming out of Iowa. Jesse Love Again, we've called it before. He's pretty much the champion. 43-point lead over Frankie Muniz. Andres Perez de Lara, his real only championship contender. Unfortunately, with the Daytona stuff, he just never really had a chance. He's third, minus 60. Andres will probably get to second, but it's a shame because I think had he been able to race Daytona, we really would have had a championship battle on our hands. Christian Rose is fourth. Tony Cosentino still fifth in points. John Garrett's sixth. Tony Breidinger, she missed this race too. She's still seventh. Jack Wood, again, not full-time. He's only scheduled to run like 10 races, so he's not going to run very much longer in that 6 car. AJ Moyer is 9th. Brad Smith is 10th. Greg Van Alst has fallen to 11th. Sawalich is 12th. He's expected to run pretty much the rest of the year, I think, except Pocono and Michigan. I think are the only 2 races he won't run. And yeah, that's pretty much the full-time guys. The Owners' Championship is still pretty close. Obviously, with where the 2 finished, that severely hurt them in the points. Pretty much come down to now a 2-horse race for the Owners' Championship as the 2 took a big hit with their bad finish. Billy Venturini's 20 car still leads the 18 of Joe Gibbs, but is by less than 5 points. So especially coming into this race at Iowa, while the Drivers' Championship might be decided, that ever so precious Owners' Championship, which we know Venturini and Joe Gibbs love to have. And they had a hell of a battle for last year's Owners' Championship, which resulted in a fight. So hopefully we can see that again this year. But yeah, and then that's also the point standings heading into this weekend at Iowa. So really watch that 20 and 18. So yeah, Mid-Ohio was fun. And now we move on to Iowa. Iowa, one of my favorite tracks because, of course, it's my home track. I live 45 minutes away from Iowa. Boy, do I miss NASCAR not coming here anymore, and I'm just thankful ARCA still comes here because, man, our track's just too beautiful to not have any series running. The Calypso Lemonade 150, which I love it. It's a great name. It's a great name for the series. Great name, great sponsor name. I'm glad we get that title sponsor. The one thing that is kind of disappointing, though, was the entry list. Only 22 cars are on the entry list. And the reason why I say that's disappointing is of what we could have potentially had. At the beginning of the season, teams like the 1 of Jake Finch, the 35 of Greg Van Alst, the 74 of Mandy Chick, both of the Loden Jackson cars from the East Division, Eric Caudell, and I believe the 55 Venturini car had planned to originally enter this race, which would have given us almost 27 to 28 cars, which would have been a hell of an entry list. Unfortunately, the problems include, the 7 funding, 74 funding, the 41 and 46 for Loudon Jackson are having behind-the-scenes problems. The 35, obviously, Greg scaled back, and the 55, unfortunately, was withdrawn due to the Hingorani suspension. They simply moved Connor Jones to the 15 and Tony Breidinger to the 25. Sean Hingorani would have been in the 15. Connor Jones would have been in the 25. Tony would have been in the 55. So, unfortunately, we lost all those cars that were going to potentially enter this race, leaving us with only 22, the smallest field since 2020. Still a decent entry list despite the fact, but again, the potential for it, that's kind of what makes it a little sad. Obviously, we'll read off all the entries as follows. The 2 of Andres Perez de Lara, the 6 of LeVar Scott, the 10 of Tim Monroe, the 11 of Zachary Tinkle. Matt Kemp returns to the 12. The 15 of Connor Jones, of course, like we just mentioned. William Sawalich in the 20. Yahoo will make its one of its first appearances of the season on the 20. Tony Breidinger in the 25. Luke Fenhouse in the 28. Frankie Muniz, again, they are entering, but they are unsponsored as well. Rita Goulet from the East Division, obviously since this is an East Combo race, is in the 31. Christian Rose in the 32. Jalen Mack, they got the clutch fixed on that car, so they will be back here. Hopefully they can actually make a lap this time. Tony Cosentino in the 45. Brad Smith, of course, I'm going to be on that car, so again, follow along for Twitter updates. We are bringing the Ford, by the way. We're the Chevrolet. I think this is it for the Chevrolet this season. I think we're going to be running the Ford, if not the rest of the year. Maybe we'll see the Chevrolet at the dirt tracks, but I think the Ford's going to run most of the rest of the year. 66 of John Garrett, 69 of Scott Melton. Good to see the Kimmel guys back at the Iowa Speedway. 98 of Dale Shear, obviously from the E Series. Brayton Laster, the Pizza Man, will be in the 0-1 for Andy Hillenberg. Alex Clubb in the 0-3, and AJ Moyer in the 0-6. So still a pretty decent entry list overall. Not what I had hoped for, but still a very solid entry list with a decent amount of cars and a good shot of winners. I would definitely say out of this entry list, the guys who have a legitimate chance at this, I'm going to say Andres Perez de Lara, like always. Throw in LeVar Scott. I mean, he's always good at these short tracks. Connor Jones, of course, Sawalich, and Jesse Love, and Luke Fenhaus. So I think we got 6 legitimate cars that have a chance at this win. Starting parks for this race. It's kind of unclear. If Fast Track Racing, if you guys are still watching, have you guys kind of made up your minds on that yet? Tim Monroe has run a couple of full races in the East Division, so I'm not sure if Monroe is going to be running the whole distance. That'd be nice if he would. I'd love to see Tim Monroe run the whole distance again. We know Zachary will be the full distance. Matt Kemp, he said he'd be running on scuffs the whole weekend, so I think he's going to be running the whole distance. Pending funding. Yeah, of course. It's that dumb word, funding. Yeah, okay. That's true. That's a good point. So pending funding. Of course, though, that's how ARCA Racing pretty much always works. It's pending funding. We'll see how it goes. So but yeah, Brayton Laster, I know he's still searching for full race funding. Hopefully he'll get to run the whole race. But right now, I think the only one we can probably confirm are the full racers are the 11 and the 12. Brad, we will be running the whole distance. AJ Moyer will obviously be running the whole distance. So will the 31. 43, if they can get the car started, will be a full distance car. So not many starting parks. So quite a few cars that will be running the whole distance. We talked about the main series points, the East Series championship points coming into this race. Yeah, John 66. I forgot about that. Yep, add in John. So 3 cars we can confirm that will be running the whole distance. The E Series points coming into this race. William Sawalich leads the E Series standings right now, only by 13 points over Luke Fenhaus. Obviously, Sean Hingorani in third is now a non-factor. LeVar Scott and Zachary Tinkle are just kind of simply too far back at this point. So I think it's a 2-horse race now. But easily to say that we still got a hell of a battle on our hands. I'm really excited to see what Luke Fenhaus can do at a track like Iowa. I think it'll really suit his driving style. For sure think it'll suit his driving style. So I would not say that he's out of a chance at all yet, especially when we have Bristol and Milwaukee on our hands. I really think those are tracks where Fenhaus will take it to Sawalich. We know that 28 is capable of running with the 18. If I had to give a winner's pick, the 18 had this race handed last year. We had an oddball entry last year with no Xfinity race. We had the 81, Brandon Jones. He ran 5 races last year for Gibbs, and this was one of those races because Xfinity had an off weekend. So it's kind of hard to call it because of last year's race when we had full-time cars, when we had a non-full-time car win the race. The 18 definitely had the strongest car, but that was Sammy Smith. Jesse Love, they actually had a battery issue last year. He didn't even finish the race. They spent the race 5 laps on pit road. So it's hard to call. It really is hard to call. You could say Jesse Love. You could say William Sawalich. You could say Andres Perez de Lara. You could easily say that Connor Jones could maybe surprise and win. Like I said, there's a lot of potential choices out there. But if I had to give an absolute winner's pick, I'm going to go with the easy one. I will go with William Sawalich. But my dark horse, I'm going to take Luke Fenhaus. I'm going to take Luke Fenhaus as my dark horse pick. Payouts for this race, of course. First place, $10,000. Last place with 22nd being $1,450. Obviously, with all contingency awards that are possible, the highest amount a car can earn would be $19,350 for first, $9,400 for second, and $5,850 for third. This race is live on FS2 Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time. So it won't really be affecting any other races that are going on. The Xfinity race will be earlier that day. So if you guys have FS2 and you guys are in the Iowa area, come on out. Come on out. Tickets are cheap. Kids under 12 are free. So, yeah, come on out, guys. Fan walk tickets are very cheap. I think, $5, $10 at most. If you guys can get up, come up close to the garage area. We will be in the main garage area. We won't be off in turn 3 and 4 like usual. So, if you guys coming out to the race, come on out. The more the merrier. We love our fans. Yeah, if you want to see some ARCA action, you live in the Iowa area or you live in Kansas, you want to make the drive, you live in Nebraska, want to make the drive, come on up. It's going to be a fun day of racing. Follow along with me, of course, for live tweets. I'll try to post as much as I can, obviously with the Ford. I don't know how much work Brad has done to it. I'm sure it's ready to go. We are running the whole distance, like I said, so that'll be fun. Yeah, I know the SRX races tonight, guys. Yeah, that'll be going on live in 20 minutes? So, yeah, don't worry. We'll be out of here before then, guys. I want to make sure you guys get to your SRX races. But, yeah, so it should be a fun race. It's just kind of hard to compare to last year, It is kind of hard to compare to last year. We had 23 cars for last year. 23 cars to last year. We had a couple start in park. I think I remember we had Tim Richmond. He only ran 2 laps last year due to a practice crash. The race actually it's kind of a little bit of a fun story, I'll tell you guys. The race actually got rain delayed. And I'm sure the fast track racing guys remember this. We didn't get started until about 11 o'clock. And we didn't wrap up until about 2 in the morning. And we didn't load up and finish until about 3 in the morning. And I was so tired and grimy. Thankfully, I actually had a change of clothes in the truck. And I will tell you this, there is nothing weirder. I swear, guys, one of the weirdest stories I can ever tell is showering in the racetrack garage area at 3 a.m. in the middle of a racetrack. It's one of my funniest stories. I mean, nothing is weirder than being in the middle of a racetrack, and they've literally shut all the lights off. Like, all the lights around the track are off. The only lights that are on are the lights from the Newton Club in the middle, in between the grandstands, like the media area in the middle of the grandstands. Only lights that are on. One of the weirdest sights I've ever been in my whole life. So, luckily, we won't have to deal with that this year. The rain, not going to be a problem all day. I mean, maybe a pop-up shower, but it's a pop-up. It'd be gone in a second. Luckily, we do have an Air Titan, I believe, coming from – we know we have Kansas jet dryers that will be there. I think we have an Air Titan coming as well. So hopefully – so that was nice of NASCAR sending us an Air Titan. And, of course, we have jet dryers from Iowa Speedway, jet dryers from Kansas Speedway. So we're prepared if we need it. We're prepared. But I don't think the rain's going to be a problem this year. Like I said, should be a fun day of racing. Just wish the NASCAR series would come here. It's come back. I mean, it's such a beautiful facility. I will not be going to the IndyCar races, mainly because I can't afford the tickets. I'm not paying $150 a ticket, so kind of hate that. My home track, and I can't go to a race because I just simply can't afford it. But, yeah, so that's Iowa. Iowa in a nutshell. Like I said, last year's race was also kind of tough on the field. We had quite a few engine failures. Last year's race, we had like the 43 had an engine failure. David Gillen's team had an engine failure. A lot of the good cars really didn't have the best runs. And, yeah, it was KBM and Kyle Busch, because remember, Kyle Busch's team technically was the 18 last year. They finished first and second. Also was announced today as well. It's kind of our last bit of news. William Sawalich will continue his duties part-time next year in both the ARCA series and the Truck series. That is not shocking. The kid is only 16 years old. So I would expect next year he'll probably run, if not the races, obviously he can't run, which would be Daytona, Talladega, Michigan, and the Kansas races. I believe since he'll be 17, though, he'll be allowed to run Pocono. So he'll be allowed to run Pocono at least. So, again, smartest idea for William Sawalich, get as much experience as possible in ARCA and trucks. And then we know that more than likely he will be more than likely he will be in one of the JGR Xfinity cars come 2025. And my last bit of news that I want to announce on the show, the countdown has begun for me. I'm announcing on this podcast live my intentions to make my ARCA Series debut next year at my home track at Iowa Speedway. I am going to run some support stock car races in some lower series in order to get approved by the series. And my hope is to either drive for some lower tier teams, I won't name them, but some lower tier teams next year and make my debut at my home track. I want to put that out there because the countdown has begun. And I hope I can secure the funding and secure this opportunity. So putting that out there, Colby Evans will be in an ARCA car, hopefully by as early as next year. And that will be the pretty much the lifetime of my career right there. And yes, I know in the chat, yes, I know it's been said in the chat a couple of times, this is Todd Souza's last year as an owner, as a driver. He will be switching to the owner role. So don't think the 13 is going away completely. The 13 will just be driven by a different driver. Todd Souza, I think he'll be at the Glen as well, kind of going out with one last big bang before he hangs up the suit and goes over to an ownership role. So, yeah, that's kind of all I got for you guys tonight. Should be a fun weekend overall. Hingorani's deal, how to kill your career in 10 seconds. Setting out this weekend, not the best entry list, but should still be a fun race overall. And, of course, follow along, guys. Follow along. Live tweets at Iowa with Brad Smith Motorsports. Cheer on the 48 Ford. Cheer on everybody at Fast Track Racing. Cheer on everybody at Peterson Racing. And, yeah, let's go racing this weekend. Follow me live on Saturday, guys. I will not be posting anything about New Hampshire because we know for sure the ARCA race will be a lot better than anything that happens at New Hampshire. So you guys have a great rest of your Thursday night. I got confused there. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on that bell for notifications so you guys, again, never miss a podcast when we go live. Super chats are always open, guys. You don't have to send a super chat, but if you want to send a super chat, you guys are more than welcome to. And yes, we got 12 minutes until the debut of SRX 2023. So I'm going to let you guys get to that, and I'll get to that as well. And yeah, thanks for tuning in tonight. Colby Evans, Start and Park Car, signing off. So long, guys.